how is child custody determined in Tarrant County? Or more specifically, how is child custody determined in Southlake? Like many of my answers, you've probably heard me say, it depends. When going to court and trying to figure out a custody agreement, the court's going to look at a variety of factors about typically what life has looked like up and until the divorce was actually filed. Let's use an example. Let's say that one parent is a stay-at-home mom, and they're typically the person who has getting the kids up for school, taking the kids to school, talking to the teachers, talking to the doctors, setting appointments with the dentist, all of that kind of day-to-day child rearing. And let's say the other person works a job in which they travel 3 days a week, they're out of town often, they're not typically there on the day-to-day child rearing activities. Doesn't mean that person is necessarily a bad parent. It just means the other parent, the stay-at-home mom in this example, is the one to do the majority of the duties on a day-to-day basis. Well, in that example, it's more likely than not, unless there's some sort of external factor that we haven't discussed in this example, it's more likely than not that the court's going to say the stay-at-home mom may be the primary parent. What does that really mean? What does primary really mean? In a court case, that means that one person has the right to determine the primary residence of the children with or without some sort of geographic restriction. From a policy standpoint, what that often will say to a judge is this person is going to have the children more than the other parent, but they may be confined to some sort of specific space so the other parent can still get a consistent amount of time with their children. Other things that may be taken into consideration beyond just from a time day-to-day standpoint is cash flow. Does one parent have the amount of money to support the children on a day-to-day basis? Stability is incredibly important when looking at who should have the right to determine the primary residence of the children. Does one parent, as I mentioned before, travel a lot? Does one parent, even when they're not traveling, are they home? Are they out at the bar? Are they doing things with their friends as opposed to with their children? Not to throw stones, everyone can parent and live their life the way that they want to, but in a custody case, the court's going to look at how are you operating on a day-to-day basis. If you do have free time, are you spending that with your children? Or are you spending it with your friends? When you have the time to go to coach the team, to take your kids to school, to be the room mom, to be the room dad, however it is, are you actually taking those opportunities? If you get to court and the other person can practically prove that on a day-to-day basis before litigation began, you weren't doing any of those things, and now, of course, because litigation began and you want to have more time with the kids, at least on paper, now you are doing those things, which should be relatively simple or straightforward for the other side to say, not so fast. Going into the court case, they weren't doing any of those things. You're just trying to look good to the judge. If you have any questions about whether or not you may have primary, how conservatorship works, or other things the court may look at when determining custody, feel free to give us a call at 817-203-2220 or find us on the web at versustexas.com.